Hello everyone, I'm here to talk about stative verbs in a 5-part series of videos where in part 1 I'm going to talk about the introduction. In part 2 I'll be discussing stative verbs for beginners with some examples. In part 3 I'm going to talk about stative verbs that can be understood by advanced users. And in part 4 I'm going to talk about those verbs that can function both as stative and dynamic verbs. And in part 5 I'm going to discuss the functions of stative verbs as gerunds. Okay, so let's get into this topic and see what stative verbs are. So stative verbs basically describe a state or condition rather than an action. Okay, so we know that there are different kinds of verbs in English grammar. We have regular verbs, irregular verbs based on the form. We have transitive verbs, intransitive verbs based on whether the verb has an object. And in the same way, we have stative verbs and dynamic verbs depending on whether the verb is talking about a state or whether it is talking about a physical action. So those verbs which talk about the state of something, the condition of something, are called your stative verbs. So for this reason, they can be used only in simple form or perfect form. And as I told you before, some verbs are strictly stative. They don't have a dynamic function, whereas others are both stative and dynamic depending on the meaning with which they are used. Okay, so for example, when you're talking about a verb like look, you can do the physical action of looking. I'm looking at a bird. Okay, I'm looking at a lake, etc. That is a physical action. Now when you say this place looks good, you're talking about the appearance of that particular place. Okay, so one word can have different meanings, and based on that we take the stative or dynamic form of that particular word. Okay, and let's look at some examples of stative verbs. Okay, so one thing I'd like to mention here is because they're stative and they talk about the state of something, you can't use these verbs in the continuous form. Okay, they can be used for present participle. Present participle is basically a verb with an ing, okay, which functions as a gerund or as a participle. Okay, present participle is you have the ing. The only difference between a present participle and a continuous form is in the continuous form you also use the helping verbs is, am and are, whereas with the present participle you don't use that. It's just that verb with ing that functions as a noun or an adjective. Okay, for example, I'd say swimming is a verb. Okay, it's a dynamic verb. Okay, so swimming, you have a verb with an ing. Now you say he goes, what is he doing? So you say he's swimming in the pool. Okay, or if I ask you what is your favorite activity, so you say swimming is my favorite activity. So in the previous example you're talking about swimming as a verb, and in the later one you're talking about swimming as a noun, the name of an activity, that is swimming. Okay, so that is your present participle which is functioning as a gerund. Okay, so in that way you can use stative verbs with present participle, but you can't use them with the helping verbs is, am and are. Okay, hope that is clear. And let's look at some examples of stative verbs here. So basically you always use stative verbs with senses. Okay, so verbs like feel, touch, hear, sound, look, see, smell, taste, etc. These are all your stative verbs which can also have a dynamic meaning, which I'm going to discuss in part 4. Okay, and your perceptions. Perception is the way you look at something, which this picture aptly summarizes. So the same thing can look different to different people. So that is called perception, how you look at something or how something seems to you. For that reason, we have the verbs like appear, be, seem, resemble, sound, etc., to talk about perceptions. Okay, and opinions about, agree, disagree, believe, doubt. These are also your stative verbs, and as you can see, there is no physical action going on here. For that reason, they are always stative. Okay, some more words like thoughts, the words that denote thoughts, such as guess, imagine, know, mean, recognize, remember, suspect, think, understand, forget, realize, consider, intend, etc. Okay, if you can see, these are all again strictly stative. As you move up the ladder, the complexity of words increases, and you can't use such profound words related to thoughts in a dynamic form. These are only stative. Okay, and possession. Okay, possession, words of possession are also stative only. For example, belong, have, own, possess, deserve, contain, include, consist of, etc. Okay, so let's look at some more examples. Measurement, words of measurement, which can be both stative and dynamic. Okay, measure is a word which can be used as an active verb when you're measuring something. Okay, I'm measuring this cloth. I'm going to discuss that in the next video. Okay, so measure, weigh. If you say I'm weighing this, you're doing a physical action. But if you say this weighs, you're talking about the weight or quantity of something. Okay, so these can have multiple meanings. And yes, feelings like love, dislike, like, hate, mind, prefer, want, need, and wish. Okay, see, these are also strictly stative. And can you see all those interesting emojis that show different feelings? Okay, so all of them are your stative verbs. Okay, so the list that I have right here in front of you is not exhaustive, but it covers pretty much a lot of them that we use regularly. These are some of the most commonly used stative verbs, and very few of them also have a dynamic meaning. But here, strictly, whenever there is a dynamic meaning, you have those words in brackets that tell you in which sense it is stative. Okay, so read these words after me, and if you're not sure about the meanings, you can always look up in the dictionary. Okay, so words like adore, say after me, agree, appear. Appear can be a dynamic verb as well when you say you're appearing in exam. Okay, that I'm going to discuss in further videos. And here, in case of stative meaning of appear, it's how something looks to you, how it appears or how it seems. Okay, appreciate, believe, belong to, concern. Concern here is a verb which means related to, with regard to. Okay, consist of, contain, cost, deny, depend on, deserve, detest. Detest is another word for hate. Disagree, dislike, doubt, equal, hate, have. Here, have is to possess or own something. Okay, I have a car, I have a house, I have 2 children, etc. Here, okay, here can be both stative and dynamic. Okay, do you hear me, or I'm hearing some noises, etc. And imagine, include, involve, know, lack, like, loathe. Loathe is again similar to detest, which is hate. Look, here not the physical action of looking, but how something looks to you, seems to you. Okay, love, matter, mean, measure, mind, need, owe, own, possess, promise, realize, recognize, remember, resemble, satisfy, seem, sound, suppose, surprise, think. Here, when you say think, you're talking about the opinion of someone. You ask, what do you think? But you don't say, what are you thinking? So in that sense, it is a stative verb. Understand, want, weigh, etc. Okay, so people, these are some of the stative verbs that we have, and in the next video I'm going to talk about the sentences which have these verbs. Okay, so if you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.